So what are the implications of using cell phones? They're part and parcel of our everyday lives, but do they have an ill impact on our health? Before we begin the discussion, here's a report on what happened in India's Supreme Court today. Do cellular towers pose a risk to your health? The Supreme Court thinks they may. Acting on the petition of a single complainant, the court ordered the closure of a mobile tower in Gwalior city. The petitioner alleged that it was his exposure to cell phone radiation which was to blame for his affliction of cancer.
Our petition is specifically that this man has been exposed to radiation over a period of 14 years and that's why he has got cancer. That's my petition. So of course now there are so many vested interests all over the place and they are going to give different interpretation. But it's very clear that my petition is about a cancer patient.
The order has reopened the debate over risks posed by cellular radiation. Telecom operators claim devices and towers are heavily regulated.
By and large, our radiation norms are quite stringent. And this is the official stand of the Government of India that radiation from towers does not cause harm to the people as of now, as per the studies done by WHO.
While research remains inconclusive, doctors claim there is little evidence to link cancer and cell phone radiation.
There is no scientific link between. We cannot ascribe directly increased incidence of cancers after usage of cell phones or staying in the vicinity of cell towers.
This interim order from the Supreme Court is likely to further fuel the debate on the effects of radiation from mobile phone towers, leaving a section of activists feeling vindicated, while the government argues that there is no proof or evidence that these waves cause cancer. This is Jessica Taneja for WION in New Delhi.
All right, so how exactly does all of this fall out and what impact does it have on the health of users of cell phones? We're joined on the broadcast by DG of the COAI, Rajan Matthews. He's live with us on the broadcast. Mr. Matthews, thanks so much for speaking with us here at WION. If I can just start by asking you to react to the Supreme Court's decision today.
So first of all, I think we need to be very clear with regard to what the court said and did not say. It did ask for the particular tower to be shut down because it said it was illegal. All right. It made no reference to EMF being the cause of that. Please remember that in addition, it was a clubbed matter. There were 4 cases that were heard together. 2 other cases also had petitions asking for shutdown of towers or removal of towers. The court did pass no order about those. Clearly, the court cannot be inconsistent in saying we'll shut down one tower for EMF, but we'll leave all these other petitions, which also have similar requests, open. So the court has basically said that in the middle of July, it will hear the whole matter in its comprehensive understanding and then make a decision. And in the interim, please understand that 8 high courts throughout the country have unanimously stated that there is no evidence to suggest that emissions from cell towers cause any ill effect or health impacts on any individual.
All right, Mr. Matthews, fair points all. Stay with us. But just to get us an understanding on how exactly cell tower radiation works, what exactly is the kind of radiation that's emitted by these cell towers, I'm joined in the studio by my colleague Sana Khan. Sana, can you take us through and bring us up to speed by what the data shows?
Right. I don't have data, Aisha, but this is very basic. I'm going to talk about how cell tower radiation actually works. And for that, we'll have to take a look at some of the pointers we have on the screens. First up, cell phone towers are said to emit radio frequency waves. Now, that's a fact, but whether it causes cancer or not, that, what the doctors and everybody is debating, and there has been a debate going on. The other point is that, these radiations or the frequency at which this passes is radio, the same one that we see on FM radio and microwaves as well. So it's the similar kind of radiation that we're talking about. And it's so high frequency that it can pass through concrete and metal as well. So these are non-ionizing waves that we're talking about. This is, we have to understand, at the very low energy of the spectrum, of the electromagnetic spectrum, and this can lead to ill effects, but again, there's no proof on that, whether this can actually cause cancer or not. This is all in theory. On human beings, high frequency can heat cells. Similar things that we see in the microwave, we put in food, a radio frequency passes through food particles and it heats up the food. Similar kind of effect on human bodies. That's what some studies say. And as I was telling you, it's so intense that it can even pass through concrete and metal. So that goes on to show same kind of principle that perhaps works in our microwaves with the radio frequency as well. And again, doctors say, and there are different views about it, this can cause fatigue, nausea, and memory loss to an extent. But all of this, I repeat, inconclusive. Back to you, Aisha.
Thanks, Sana. So obviously, as my colleague Mr. Matthews, Sana is pointing out that like you're saying, in terms of the actual impact that the kind of radiation that comes out of cell towers has on human health, that's still, the jury's still out on the impact. But going by the Supreme Court's decision today, the order that was passed, are you concerned as the DG of the COAI that this could open up a can of worms for your organization and for cell phone operators across India?
Yes, it could open a can of worms if it is misunderstood and misapplied. So please understand there is no issue of being inconclusive. Please understand that 8 high courts have reviewed the matter. The WHO has reviewed the matter. ICNUP, which is the international body, has reviewed the matter. All kinds of doctors have reviewed the matter and have said there's no conclusive evidence. The government of India, based on these facts, has adopted stringent safety norms, which are much more stringent than the norms in America, the norms in Europe for the large part. And so 95% of the world has laxer security or safety norms than we have in India. So to say that it's inconclusive is really to misrepresent what the issue is.
Okay, stay with us, Mr. Matthews. I'm also joined by my colleague Ankit Tuteja. He joins us live from the newsroom. Ankit, as Mr. Matthews is pointing out, there seems to be a lot of question marks over the actual impact of the radiation that towers supposedly emit and the impact they might have on health. He says that calling the data inconclusive is incorrect. But going by cell phone operators and cell phone manufacturers, how do you perceive them responding to the decision that was made today?
Aisha, I mean, there has been a debate over the radiations coming out from cell towers, from mobile phone towers. It's been over the years. There has been debate around it for years now. If you go to the internet, there have been people taking the sides. Like, there is a house that says these radiations have a deep impact on the human health, while there is other side which says that there is no proof about it. So the debate has been ongoing for years now. And we can only go by the international standards. So if you go by the experts' opinion, if you go by the international organization's opinion, there has been no proof that link EMF radiations with the effects that it has on the human health.
Okay, Ankit, I'm also joined in the studio by Suruchi Mittal. She's a senior associate with Law Offices India. Suruchi, thanks for joining us here on the show. So obviously there are so many counterpoints and counter conversations happening about the actual impact. But just going by today's decision, the Supreme Court categorically staying away from that debate, just saying dismantle the tower immediately in the next 7 days. What do you make of the Supreme Court's order, and what sort of conversation do you think it's going to start or generate as far as this debate goes?
The Honorable Supreme Court has been very judicious while making such a direction. It has been not made without basis. A lot of studies were already on record, which were considered by the Honorable Court at the time of making the direction. There are several studies which indicate high potentiality of cancer, and there have been several cases throughout India which have been placed on the record where several people have contacted cancer when continuously being exposed to cancer, electromagnetic radiation from these towers, and thereby this direction has come from the court.
Okay, do you think that the contention or the contentious issue here might just then be that if these towers do cause that kind of impact on health, why is it that only few people end up, with cancer? For instance, in the case of today's petitioner, he worked in a home in Gwalior, but he was the only person to have gotten cancer there. What do you make of that argument?
See, in this particular case, he's the person, and there was the owner of the house, are the only two persons who continuously remained in the house. The other family members kept on traveling. So these were the only two people who were continuously exposed for 14 years for radiation, and these were the two people who actually contacted cancer. So I think that's a sufficient enough evidence that it does causes cancer. In all the cases where there have been a cell tower radiation allegation that it causes cancer, they have been in direct proximity to those towers. So it is more than a coincidence that all these people around the towers are getting cancer.
Okay, Mr. Matthews, would you like to react? Suruchi there saying that it can't just be a coincidence that people in close proximity to towers such as these do contract cancer.
I mean, these are all anecdotal evidences that are sort of put up as scientific evidence. Please, let's go with the science. All right, the fact that there are cases of cancer and there is a cell tower, that has happened and been looked at, and extensive studies have been done with
all right, we seem to be having trouble with your audio, Mr. Matthews. We'll try and correct that and get back to you in just a second. We'll try and fix that immediately. Suruchi, but as you can see, he represents the COAI, and obviously there's going to be a great amount of, let's just say, resistance to this judgment. Do you think that there are, as the lawyer for the petitioner said, vested interests are involved here, and perhaps that's why there's so much aggression in attacking this situation?
Yes, there is so much aggression. Plus, there have been a detailed lobby, behind not giving public all the information that is required to be given. Studies have been taken from 1990s by WHO, and WHO has been repeatedly saying that there are gaps in the knowledge which require longer studies to be undertaken. Just because they're now inconclusive does not mean later on they cannot prove a conclusion, and that necessitates the fact that the court and the society treads on the precautionary principle, which has been upheld by the court in several environmental concerns, that in case there is a risk or an increase in risk of the health concerns or any concerns that affects the people, a precautionary principle has to be adopted. And similarly, that applies in this case.
Okay, so in fact, we do have some research on what exactly, the way the research stands right now on the issue. We'll get to that in just a second, but if I can go back to my colleague Ankit Tuteja. Ankit, India can't be alone, the only country that's facing a situation such as this. What exactly are the terms and practices of cell phone operators when it comes to countries, let's say, in Europe or the quote-unquote developed world, such as the United States?
Aisha, first we need to understand that there has been debates around it. There has not been any conclusive evidence around it. So shutting down mobile phone towers without any conclusive proof, I don't think it's a right move, especially when radiation norms in India are far more stringent than what we see in other countries like USA, Canada, or for that matter, Australia. So radiation norms are 10 times more stringent in India. And even experts over the years have clearly stated that there has not been any clear link between EMF radiations and human health.
Okay, do you buy that argument, Suruchi?
No, I don't buy that argument. Even if the norms are 10 times stronger, as the department wants to say it, there is no way that the department can ensure or positively say that these are being implemented or enforced. The guidelines for enforcement of the department is that the telecom service providers will file a self-certification. What is a self-certification? If I am a telecom service provider, I'll fill up an undertaking that I'm complying with the norm, and it's going to be filed. If there are term cells made by the Department of Telecom which are required to randomly check only 10% of these towers. So 90% of the towers goes unchecked, and they are relied upon by self-certification. So these 10% stronger norms as by the department are not being enforced in reality, and department does not know whether it's being happening on date or not.
Okay, Jessica Taneja, my colleague, is also with us on the program right now. She, in fact, conducted an interview with the petitioner's lawyer a little while earlier. Jessica, if you can just take us through the salient features, perhaps, of the Supreme Court's observations today and what exactly it said. Did it get into the entire debate over the legality of these cell phone towers, or did it focus on the health versus research debate?
Well, there were multiple debates and it was a very short-lived debate, so to say, Aisha. The case will be heard at length on 11th of July, where all the other PILs as well as this was particularly a writ petition. So the Supreme Court is going to hear collectively the matters from other petitioners that were filed. In this particular case, this was a case from 2002, which eventually came into existence in 2012. And from there onwards, now this interim order, so to say, but does not really say a lot of misinterpretations, Aisha, around this interim order, where people say that the Supreme Court's order has said that because of the cancerous emissions or the radiation waves are the cause. But the order specifically just points it down to the fact that this particular tower needs to be deactivated within 7 days. So a lot of misinterpretations around this. I think that we'll have once more clarity when on 11th of July the Supreme Court finally hears it. And given the force in this case, it has been put up first on the list of 11th of July. So I think this is going to be very significant both for the telecom companies and the petitioners who've collectively been filing this. Again, the activists also not leaving out activists who have been consistently alleging, as a matter of fact, that this has caused a lot of problem for the birds, the bees around. Right. So basing their evidence on that. But again, if you speak to the oncologist and you've heard the doctor who says there is no evidence and there is no proof, to come out with.
Okay, so again, the word that seems to come back again and again in this conversation is research. What exactly does research say? In fact, Sana standing by with us for more on that. Sana, back to you, if you can give us an idea of what international research says on the issue.
Absolutely. We don't have proof, Aisha, as you said, but if we were to look at what some of the leading international bodies are saying, the International Agency for Research on Cancer has said that possibly carcinogenic to humans, including the risk of brain tumor. Now, that's big if one is to believe that research being conducted. Then the US EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, says high levels of RF is dangerous for human beings. It clearly lays it out there. But again, without the lack of proof, it's difficult to corroborate these. Such levels have found near long-distance transmitters. The EPA also goes on to say that. So is one at risk after looking at these studies? One really has to ask that question again. But if we can move on to perhaps another set of graphics talking about the Department of Telecom, Department of Telecommunications guidelines, they very clearly mention, I was going through some of the pointers, they talk about how one should not keep a cell phone very close to the body, and how repeated use of cell phone, putting it very close to the ear, can cause some sort of damage. One has been advised to take care, but without the lack of proof, of course, one cannot say anything. This is the AIM study that we've been talking about. They say increased risk of brain tumor with mobile phone use. Now, remember, not many studies have been conducted as far as the country is concerned on mobile phone usage, but the AIM study is one that we are going by with the facts that we have. They say children are more at risk from mobile radiation over time. The time frame in most of the cases AIMS mentioned is 10 years, and they also advise the use of earphones over headsets for long-term use. Some of the similar guidelines that we've seen in the DOT advisories as well. So that's the gist of it. Aisha, it's back to you.
Thanks, Sana. So again, contrary points of view, some research saying that there are long-term effects that can be seen in the use of cell phones. And of course, we're not just talking about the impact that exposure to radiation from cell phone towers causes, but also cell phones. Do you feel, Suruchi, looking at the data that Sana just provided to us, that these are arguments that can be used in favor of doing away with towers, especially in residential communities?
See, we don't want actually doing away with the towers, but we want a regulation and implementation of a guideline which is safe for the people. At present, there is none, and there is no enforcement. And there is a Department of Telecommunication constituted interministerial committee, which itself recommended that near hospitals and residential areas, these towers should be seriously regulated and not installed very easily. But this was not adopted by Department of Telecommunications for the reasons best known to it.
Okay. All right. Dr. Matthews, we just had a look at some of the data, and there was a very interesting study that AIMS has conducted. Just to take you through some of the gist of it, it says there is an increased risk for brain tumors with exposure or long-term exposure to cell phones, and children are most at risk. I know you're adamantly saying that there isn't enough conclusive evidence to draw a link between the two, but just going by these studies and the fact that there's cell phone usage has been around for a very short period of time, so one can't perhaps fully assess the impact. Would you or your body be open to more regulation to improve or at least do away with the risk that the cell phone usage poses?
So first of all, I think there's a lot of misinformation that has just been bandied around in terms of various comments that have been made. First of all, please understand that the DOT, as responsible, has set the safety norms. All right, to say that there are no safety norms is false. Secondly, please understand that there is a difference between the safety norms adopted for cell towers and those for handsets. Don't confuse the two. All right, so those need to be kept separate. If we are talking about emissions from cell towers, please keep that as a separate and distinct thing.
All right, fair enough. We seem to have lost audio connection with Dr. Matthews. We'll go back to him, but we are also running out of time on the program. So just to close and in closing, Suruchi, if I can just ask you to give your closing comments on this entire debate. Where do you think this debate is going to go? And do you think that it is a long time coming for more regulation to be achieved in terms of at least the placing of these towers?
Yes, a long time regulation is long due in this process because the telecom regulatory industry is growing by leaps and bounds. So yes, it is a recent phenomena and there's required to be concern and regulation here. Studies are undergoing and the diseases are coming over a period of time. Nobody gets cancer within a day or two. So these researchers take time, and therefore the researchers have been given time. Until then, we have to go on precautionary principle, and if there are already studies with WHO and within India which indicate high risk factors for people in proximity to get cancer, then we should adopt that.
All right. Ankit, to Teja, also when it comes to cell phone manufacturers and of course cell phone operators in not just India but across the world, do you think that they'll be more forthcoming when it comes to agreeing to regulation, or do you feel that there's going to be a great amount of resistance?
Aisha, I mean, by now we have understood that there is no clear evidence, there is no conclusive link between EMF radiations and effects on the human health. But I want to highlight another thing here that we have been ignoring. If we deactivate the mobile towers, we might have a good impact on our health, on our human health, which so far has not been proven yet. But we are forgetting the kind of losses that it's going to bring along. For example, the mobile communication has brought in a lot of revolution in a country like India. And mobile tower is one of the key infrastructures of mobile communication and the revolution it has brought along. So if you talk about, it's not only about economic growth, it's about social growth as well as disaster management. Mobile communication has proven to be a key tool in the revolution that it has brought along in a country like India. So I just want to say there has not been any proof so far about the EMF radiations and human health, and shutting down or deactivating the mobile towers based on no proof as such would not be a right move.
Okay, so the classic debate of development versus health comes up in this case as well. Let's go across to Jessica Taneja as well. Jessica, obviously we're hearing arguments on both sides of this debate, some pro, some anti, but when it comes to the legality of all of this, can we expect to see some sort of movement in terms of regulation coming in from the Supreme Court come July?
Well, I will definitely add here that one has to just wait for 11th of July because it's been given high priority, and looking at this debate right now, Aisha, you know, it will be important as to what the Supreme Court observes, or if and only if they give out an order on the 11th of July itself, because these are combined petitions. There were a lot of petitions as well as this writ petition, particularly, that has sparked debate recently. So, given the legality of this, I think the Supreme Court wants to make a very fair analysis. Even earlier in 2016, the Supreme Court, which the bench headed by Chief Justice Thakur, former Chief Justice Thakur, also observed and asked, you know, all the authorities, the government, the telecom authorities, as to why this has happened, or they need more conclusive evidence to sort of come out with an order that could define the whole debate further for everybody in this country.
All right, Jessica. So even if in the question of the link being proved between ill health and cell phone usage, the question is, will you and I give up using our phones? They have become so pervasive in our everyday life, and we're all known to complain when networks do drop. But questions that have been left unanswered hopefully will receive some sort of resolution come July 11th. On that note, I'm going to wrap up the show. I'd like to thank all my guests, Ruchi Mittal here in the studio, also Dr. Matthews, my colleagues Ankit Tuteja and Jessica Taneja, and Sana Khan for coming in and giving us their inputs on the story. With that, it's a wrap. My colleague Digvijay Singh Dio joins you on the other side of this short break with WION Sports. Stay tuned.